Look, there's always step changes in business, and there's functional changes, and people will move faster. And anything I think that allows you to just do more work faster is going to win. Is going to beat the guy who is doing less work, because you'll have more profits, you'll have more ways to reinvest.
Okay, Harry, we're back. It's middle of May. I think this is our 7th episode now. It's a beautiful Monday.
Yeah. We usually do these on weekends. We between Mother's Day and a bunch of other stuff we managed to miss this weekend, but all for a good cause. Here we are. I can't believe it's only. I can't believe it's only May, and on the other hand, I can't believe it's May. It seems like the year is moving quickly. Perhaps all of our clock speeds are speeding up, just like
the
AI world.
Yeah, as much as you are analyzing the AI world and acting inside of it, you realize that, we spoke about this earlier. It's like you can't move faster than human speed. And AI is just moving like, I don't know, 10x it feels like, or 100x.
Yeah.
So you're in this like AI space moving at, a very fast pace, and we're like kind of like watching it. You can't help but, I don't know, be like mentally exhausted by it. And if you're working with AI directly, it could just run you ragged. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah, I think if you try to keep with everything, and then I think you can keep up with everything sort of mentally, but then if you actually try to put it into play and then use it on your computers, you'll never catch up. And the reason is that there's just much smarter people doing it every day, and they're grinding out their own project every day, and then they just move everything forward, and everyone leapfrogs each other, and one individual is not going to be able to keep up with a whole industry of really intelligent people leapfrogging each other on a daily basis and building off what the other guy builds. So you got
to start somewhere, though, right? I mean,
yeah. You start wherever is. To me, you start wherever is practical for the problem that you have. If the problem that you have is I need to build a Mother's Day card/website for my wife, which is the problem that I had Saturday night coming into Sunday morning. You use a bunch of pictures, and you use Claude Cowork, and you use Netify, and voila, there's a beautiful, and moving and touching website that I think I created for her, and I hope she enjoyed it.
So you totally powered down. You powered out what seemingly you wouldn't been able to do, pre-AI, right? You wouldn't have been able to like get Netlify to, be a friend and get the hosting and all that, right? So it unlocked that for you, right?
Completely. I mean, I would have. I would have bought a Hallmark card, I guess, is the answer.
Hallmark's business is down the drain because so many people can do this now.
I absolutely thought about that, right? I mean, you go to buy a Hallmark card, it's like $8, and it's just some, pablum written by someone in Kansas City. And, and it's been the standard for a long, long time if you weren't going to just, draw your own picture or write something. And I can't draw. So I can write, but I can't draw. And this really made it quite personal. I took, the best pictures of my wife and our family that we had collectively over the past year, and, used about 20 of them, set it to, it's our anniversary this coming Friday, 33 years married. And we danced our first dance to Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World. So I had that music playing in the background on the website. And I just sort of went through with the 20 pictures and, wrote captions for them, and, why she was a great mom, and had pictures of her with our 2 daughters and with our dog, and had a nice message and, good styling. I mean, the whole thing. Like, there is no chance that I could have. There's no chance I could have done this, and I did it while, watching 2 episodes of an Amazon Prime drama. Like, it's just.
I mean, so that's like the power of AI, like at a personal level, but you can see how that could be industrialized, and you can see how, if you're like, I always just bring this back to like, if you're running a company, like if you don't have executives even doing that level of sort of creation, exploration, curiosity. I just I just worry about those companies and those executives. Like, if you just don't have that team,
You're doomed. I
you're
think
kinda doomed, right? Because you
yes.
were talking about the speed of innovation here, right? Like, you have your recent post called Groundhog Day is really talking about how fast everything's going, but it's like, okay, fine, like, you're a company that's not involved in this at all, but if you don't have the team or talent that's curiously working on it, like, you're gonna get lapped so hard that you may not be able to join, like, the way modern business is moving in 10 months, and not this isn't a doomsday. This isn't like, "Hey, your company's out of business." It's like, but at some point, like, hey, you might have missed these windows, and these other companies, these other executives have like figured out how to do this thing, and their company's moving in a different vector than yours
Yep.
is. Like, what do you think about that? Like, where's an average business user at if they're not if they don't have this team and talent in place that are doing these things?
I think they look, there's always step changes in business, and there's functional changes, and people will move faster. And anything I think that allows you to just do more work faster, um, is going to win. Is going to beat the guy who is doing less work, because you'll have more profits, you'll have more ways to reinvest. Um, the Groundhog Day piece was really actually it wasn't. I What I thought was interesting, and why I picked Groundhog Day, was that it was recursive learning. If you really think about what Bill Murray's character was doing, Phil Connors was doing in that movie, they compressed it into, 15 or 20 minutes, but he learned French. He learned how to play classical piano, and he learned how to play jazz piano. He learned how to ice sculpt. He learned skills that Malcolm Gladwell would say takes 10,000 hours. So, if you think about it, 10,000 hours, break it down, right? I mean, if you did 10 hours a day for, you know, how many days do you need to get to 10,000 hours, right? You need a lot of days, right? And and that's per skill. And let's just assume that he learned like 6 or 7 unbelievable skills. So, the guess is, I read somewhere, because I actually looked it up. I was sort of interested, was that the time frame from when he realized that he was stuck in this loop to the time that he got out of this loop was like 20 to 30 years, based on the skills that he
It's the
learned.
skills he acquired, yeah.
And so, he was in this recursive, self-reinforcing learning loop every day for 20 to 30 of our years before he got it right, before he could, speak French, and do everything the way that Andy McDowell wanted it. And that kind of, broke the cycle for him. So I just thought about it, in terms of the way that we are seeing these labs move, where the code is now reviewing and writing the code. And so they
Yeah.
are, it's not like they are, has any company put out a feature set like Anthropic has done over the last 6 to 8 weeks.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they took their basic intelligence model and turned it on itself and said, "Okay, let's eat, this guy's lunch and that guy's lunch and that guy's dinner, and we're gonna take that kid's, lunch money and their snacks," and that's what they've done. And so you've seen it there, which also means, and I wrote about this a little bit, although it's probably more your domain than mine, but the bad guys have this same tool, right?
Yeah.
They put it out there, which means that the attacks become recursive, and the hacking becomes worse and faster, and
Yeah.
the amount of disinformation out there in the world gets worse, and it gets harder to detect. And we humans are stuck with our own clock speed, trying to, catch up to all of this. And it becomes, a very hard thing. Everyone, talks about Carpathian, and I think he said, I read it somewhere this weekend. He said that, look, that the regular engineers became 10x engineers, and the 10x guys became 100x guys. But there's a case to be made that the guys who went from 1x to 10x aren't going to 100x, that they're stuck, because they can't learn what it takes to become the next part of that. And I wrote about this in another piece. I think it was I think it was last week. But because you write a lot of these things and you sort of forget what day
Yeah,
you
it
wrote them.
blurs.
But I wrote about Mozart and Salieri, and I think maybe we talked about it a little bit last week. But
Yeah, we did.
yeah, okay. So but the idea is that some people can just hear the music, and those guys that can just hear the music became 100x engineers, and those that don't hear the music but are just sort of competent engineers became 10x engineers. And the real problem, though, is that, as I see it, is that you are going to come through and you're going to kill all the guys that might become 100x engineers simply because you're just going to fire all the lower level staff up, and you're going to keep these. There's going to be this, winner take all kind of
Yeah.
fight for talent, where if you're just sort of an average dude, well, you'll just be an average dude.
That's current now, right? Like, there
Yeah.
in every organization, there's especially in tech spaces, you have, like, if you're an average coder, there's a senior guy. They have they have a principal title. They're very gifted. They're given the luxury to think about a problem deeply. They've been with the problem for quite a long time, and you're implementing around them. And that's standard. And I don't think that changes, Harry, as much as it it's gonna get exasperated, right? And
Right.
I don't know if firing the it definitely gives your senior guys the ability to have less team around them to actually have to figure everything out, because you can use the power of these AI machines, and you can instrument them in a way. So there's a case that's like, yeah, you might have had a team of 35 with 2 really gifted or 5 really gifted folks, and the rest are just like what you'd call like maintenance engineers, etc. Um,
Let's just, for the argument's sake, say that there's a 10-to-1 ratio, right? Let's just say that there's 50, total people, and 5 of them are really gifted, and the rest are average, right? In the new world, those 5 can get along with far fewer average guys around because they just work
yes,
faster and they understand AI. So
yes.
here's my question: if it took, you know 45 guys being around 5 super smart guys in order to move one of those average guys up to the super smart level because they kind of came along. What happens when the ratio changes and now it's all of a sudden 1 to 1, and I got 5 super smart guys, 5 average guys just sort of doing my grunt work, and then a really smart AI system. Do any of those 5 ever have a chance to make it up to the next level?
Yeah, I mean,
How do we get the people to the next level?
so my feeling is like, if you're one of the like if you're one of the you've seen them in every field.
Every field,
If
of
you're a
course.
extraordinary gift, even like a golfer, you know what I mean? It's like you see exceptional players, and then you see just regular players, right? And the question is like, I don't think regular players ever really become exceptional. Maybe there's a few, but they're all necessary inside an organization. I just think that with this AI industrialization, you won't need as many solid team members that are great passers or have great defense, because I think you can actually take your exceptional players and industrialize or instrument AI systems to actually provide that service to you.
So are 100x engineers at this point born and
Yeah,
not
I think
made?
I think some of them are made. I think some of them. I think honestly, I think you might just. I think there's just exceptional people that are given the opportunity. Now, where I think where your question's leading is, you may be exceptional and never found, and you may be exceptional and never been given the opportunity. I think that getting into opportunities and getting the opportunity to show your magic is often what ignites you. And I think that what we'll see people are getting missed, or they're just never joining the corporate ranks, and they're able to do everything themselves and build their own
Right.
little side empires.
Do you know the name Jonas Vingegaard?
I don't.
So Jonas Vingegaard is a professional bicycle racer. Okay. Um, he is from Denmark, and he looks like a fish. He's a very fishy looking fella. And in the Grand Tours, he of the grand tours that he's started since, like, 2020, he has finished no worse than 2nd. He's either won or come in 2nd in every single grand tour that he's raced and finished in the last 5 or 6 years, which is extraordinary, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's exceptional.
he was a guy who was basically, I said he looked like a fish. He was working literally as a fishmonger, like as a fish guy in Denmark, and he biked on weekends, and he used Strava, which is
Yeah, yeah, that app.
which is an app that allows you to post your rides to the public. And one of the teams noticed that this guy in Denmark numbers, his watts per kilogram, his output, his power meter numbers were just off the charts, like pro level, like they hadn't seen before. And they invited him to come to a training camp. That's how they found him. I mean, he literally was just driving around on his bike at a ridiculous level of
I mean,
speed.
that's how they find, Formula 1 racers is just watching sort of like video game guys.
Right. Well, that's the crazy thing about Formula 1, right? You have Max Verstappen, who probably is the greatest driver today. The people might listen to this and send hate mail on that because some people like different drivers, but
Of course.
he's an exceptionally gifted driver. But like what he does for fun is go and race on the video game consoles, and he holds all the records there. And then he goes to Nürburgring and does GT3 car races, and
I
he's
know,
winning those.
by
Um,
the way, that bringing it back to, like, exceptional, coders, that's what they do too, right?
yeah.
They'll code at work, they'll code on an open source project, they'll code over there. It's because it's what they do. They're exceptional.
Yes.
And average people just don't do that. Average people will, like, code, and then they'll have, like, like a family or a life or so, what I
Right.
mean? It's just across the board. I think in my opinion, what AI just does is it actually consolidates power. Like, it
Yes.
compresses and consolidates.
Yeah, well, we've said it's a force multiplier, so it's exactly what it's doing. I mean, it's doing the right thing. I guess my question is there a way to find these guys and gals, although seemingly mainly more guys than gals? Is there a way to find these people quicker, easier, more efficiently, and to effectively identify them earlier and give them the tools that are available today to allow them to,
Yeah,
to bring up.
I don't
I mean, look,
I don't know. I mean, like,
yeah,
I've been hiring engineering talent, and I'd often find that some of the best engineering talent wasn't often going through the university system.
yeah,
They'd be self-taught, self creators, and they're harder to find. I actually think what's interesting is in this era of engineering, since AI is gonna, I think, will largely do the bulk of the work. Like, do you know what I mean?
yep, I
The
do.
grinding out the frameworks and just, like, all of the DevOps, like, you just won't need a lot of those people, but, well, the harder people to actually find, and if you see at these labs, is, like, researchers, right? Like, people that have, like, enough time because they're not all the researchers in these labs aren't really developers, like data scientists and those guys, they weren't really developers. They were hacking and researching a problem, and what limited those folks wasn't really like their human intellect, it was that they were bound by compute, right? Like, their research was like, "I need all of this compute to find out if my research is actually valid or invalid," and that happens inside of medical and scientific discoveries, and I feel like those kinds of people need to actually find their path to universities and to, like, super, clusters of supercomputers to find out their research. And those are already figured. The people know how to identify those engineers, right? Because they have to go through a university system. They have to go through um, systems that have that compute. So they'll be found. The rest of the world will be maybe lost or hidden inside of, like, little projects around the world. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
I have a bet that, like, Linus, who created the kernel, which you actually mentioned in your groundhog piece, he wasn't sitting at IBM for 10, 20 years. Like, he was hacking over here, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think that computing, from my experience in it, has always been a hobbyist space. Like
yeah.
I
It's
when
it's
I
a
would find
craft, not a. Um,
well, it was just weird. It was a weird group. Like back in the day when you were building your own computers in the 90s, you'd go to hobby fairs and there'd be guys that would be selling you a daughter board for this, and you'd get like some freeware from someone else, and it was just a weird, yeah, it was a craft, right? I don't know where it's going right now. I'd be curious what other engineer that are listening to the podcast think, but it's going to a different place, and the outcome of the computer people they're changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's changing, and so it's I haven't really thought about it until you're just till this talk in the podcast that it's like, yeah, it's changing in such a way that like the culture around it, where you would meet people literally at a computer fair, they tell you some stuff and you go home and try it. Now it's advanced where it's like, it just that's not happening. I mean, obviously you use the message boards and et cetera. You still use all that. That's changed, but yeah, it's just it's the industry is going through such a fundamental change that I don't know what 100x and 10x and 0x people are going to be doing.
I don't know either, but it would seem to me that figuring out the best way to identify talent and to grow talent and to encourage people is certainly going to be an important part of us, and I'm going to say us, the U.S., um, staying at the forefront of this while we're
Yeah,
developing a lot of this stuff. And we certainly have the big labs here. Um,
but China is just as good.
yeah, I was going to say, we may have big labs here, but the open source models coming out of China are phenomenal.
They're the
And
the best, and they're
yeah,
frankly the best almost. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
And I think they have many more engineers and many more people that are encouraged to do this, whereas I'm not sure that our school systems and our education
No,
systems are geared up for this at all. Whereas, the computer part of it is sort of yeah, look, my daughter went to a spectacular school and ran the robotics team, but, she's considered a nerd. She's now a rocket scientist, so, she fits the mold, right? But that's a weird extracurricular, and it's not a core of what they're teaching you necessarily. And
yeah, I think
moving forward, it's pretty clear that you wanna be learning this stuff and not learning how to work on a factory floor,
y-
not it's just pure obedience and just sit there and do your homework and don't ask questions and,
yeah, I
we'll go.
feel like the factory floor worker has been something that we probably shouldn't been factoring for a long time because we couldn't compete at the labor cost. But I do think that if we had rational government leadership, we would probably be thinking about building national laboratories that would give a large set of researchers enough energy and compute to do real research for no corporation. And just, you know what I mean? Just like how you're funding pharmaceuticals or you're funding like military, it would be like, how do you fund industrial scale research and development that the government can actually have their hands on? And maybe that's federated to universities. But if you go to a university, you're not going to be able to get like in average university, just like a California, you know, you're not going to have the resources to actually do any of that work. So it goes to elite universities. But I feel like if we had rational sort of leadership, we'd be thinking about how do we how do we really explain to our, junior high school class and your college class that this is the way of the world, and we have to all get on and understand how to frankly use, and then talent that actually knows how to become 100x would be immediately drawn to these systems and allowed to like
Yeah.
compete.
I mean, so you're fundamentally talking about, a process change in a large, very large bureaucratic system that's developed. And, we've already, talked a little bit about how humans can't keep up with the changes in AI. Now just imagine your local school system trying to keep up with this. And it's not just it's not just a question of if they want to, because I guarantee you that Randy Weingarten, who runs, the teachers unions for the US, for the whole US, basically the head of the teachers union, she has literally no interest in keeping up with this. Zero interest, right? Because it fundamentally changes jobs,
Yeah.
and it hurts her power, and hurts the union's power, and there's just no chance that they're going to do that, because no one willingly gives up power, that's effectively a politician's. And I think that's just, I mean, I don't wanna get really political on here, but, some people like her, I don't think should exist, but
Her role, not her person.
yes, of course, yeah, yeah, her role. I mean, it's just, I mean, I get why unions exist. I'm not arguing for that. I just think that what most bureaucrats and political institutions have become is just ways to protect the
Well,
institution, the bureaucracy, and they're no longer about the fundamental mission, which was actually helping to educate children.
yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in podcasts, but certainly not on the podcast where I feel like the entire education system hasn't sobered up to this AI reality, and we're talking about Groundhog Day and this post, and we're talking about the speed in which things are going and bureaucratic systems. One bureaucratic system is not really training people that are in high school or even frankly college of like really what it's going to be like in the real world. And some of that's okay. Like let students have some space to just like read and write and learn, but it's like it's really sort of unfair to them if they're not really clear on like what the compute cycle is going to be like when they exit, because it's really just like, I don't know, you're just like, yeah, you need to learn, you should read all these books and learn how to critically think and ask questions, but you should be really framed in a way that the way that you're going to have to do that is different. Is not the way you think, but the way you execute is changing. And
Yes.
that's the same with corporations that we talk about all the time here, Harry, where it's like, the speed is going fast. And if you're not sort of working at it or having a team and talent in it, you're good. I think you're frankly in trouble and you don't know it.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on a good point here, which is it is the execution layer that matters, because the thinking is the thinking, right? I mean, I unfortunately spent some amount of time yesterday watching the game show The Floor, with my wife and daughter when we got home from our Mother's Day trip to see my mom, and and they obviously they cast a certain type of person who's either insane, incredibly stupid, borderline retarded, and you sort of look at it and go, and you sort of say, "Well, who's the idiot? We just spent 45 minutes watching these people, as we ate dinner and kinda laughed at them," and I guess that's the point, but
It's entertainment.
it's entertainment, but it's a really low level of entertainment. I might as well keep up with the Kardashians. It's a higher level than The Floor. The Floor is pretty low, but you know
Hence
what?
the name.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the
But
floor, man.
yes, it brings you down, but I think what's interesting is that it really comes down to that, and you hit on it, critical thinking is largely not taught. I mean, I went to Princeton, one of the elite universities in the world, right? And it was a spectacular place, and I had a fantastic time, and I met my wife there, and I have nothing but good things to say about my experience there. But the single best thing that I learned there was critical thinking, and I would attribute it to a professor named Peter Brown, who taught a history course, and he just harped on it. And he forced us to read multiple different points of view of a same historical
Yeah.
thing, something that happened, and then had us discuss it and just beat it into us to look at things from every point of view. And I think that's served me incredibly well in life, and I think you have to, do that. And you see it now in AI with, hey, you have to steel man this, or you have to get your council of wise men on this, and you have to, there's all of these, there's all of these skills that you can download from, the get rich quick guys, that will talk to you about this. But I think what's important, and I hope that my roommate from college, Greg Aldrete, who's a professor retired now, professor of ancient history, and he was on the Lex Friedman podcast and did 4 hours on Roman history with Lex Friedman, which was
Oh, that's
great.
so cool.
Yeah, but he's a real, he believes in liberal arts education, not just, hey, just learn engineering, like that learning liberal arts education is important. And I think what he would say, if I could paraphrase him, and maybe he'll argue with me and I'll get a call after this, is that what it does is it gives you context
Yes.
effectively. And the more information that you have in your head and the more you can put these things together, if you have basically Karpathy's second brain running in your own brain, because you've seen a lot of stuff, because you've read a lot of stuff, because you can then actually put these things together, you have the ability to come out and create more context, which then gives AI a better place to start, which then gives you a better outcome so that you can
Yeah.
execute far better with that context. Now, obviously, if you are 20 years old as opposed to almost 60, you probably haven't seen Groundhog Day 30 times, right? I have. I love the movie, thought it was fantastic, saw it when it came out, and have rewatched it continuously for years. And so when I started to think about framing last night's piece, that's what came to my mind. I think in terms of movies. That's my sort of
Yeah,
cultural
it's a great way to think, yeah.
contextual, reference that, hopefully lots of people have seen The Godfather, or they've seen The Matrix, or they've seen again,
Star Wars.
yeah, Star Wars. Now I'm naming old movies, right?
Those are all movies from the '70s. Groundhog Day is probably from the '90s, right, or '80s?
These are 2000s,
Yeah.
yeah, um, but at any rate, it's have that context, and so I think I'm able to execute a little bit better for having it. But the critical thinking that goes into the framing of the argument doesn't change. Whether you have AI or you don't have AI, you still have to come up with that critical thinking yourself.
Yeah.
And the better you do that, and then the more framing you can put around it, the better you're going to be able to communicate it with other people. And that's really all any of this work really is just saying, again, I have a problem. I want it to be solved. I have a vision of how that problem should be solved. AI go to work and do that. And, it's really why you're seeing a lot of these PM roles become more valuable in companies, because the PM that can actually ship, as opposed to just say, I want it this way.
Yeah.
Now someone else go do it, as opposed to, I want it this way. And AI is my partner. Now, AI, you do it. It's done. Okay, great. Yeah, no, it's not quite right. Let me fix that. Let me fix that. And then over the course of a couple hours, they actually solve their own problem for the company. Well, that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I think so. There's a bunch of to unpack there, but let's bring it back to the 100x person and stuff like that, and what you were saying. Context is king. If you don't have context in any business, you're wildly lost, right? And so a liberal arts education is probably a fine education because it's going to give you a broad spectrum and critical thinking and how to question, how to query systems to actually get something is going to be very important, because if the AIs are actually baked with all of the sort of neural networks of all thought, then the person that knows how to ask it is going to get the best result. And that also goes with coding as well, right? If you know how to prompt the systems and systematize them, you're going to get a better result. And I think companies, I bring it back to this, I think I'll point out a company I think is an incredibly interesting case study of maybe what's went wrong, which is, I talked about this earlier, but with Microsoft, right? If you look
Yep.
at it, it's like brilliant company, extraordinarily successful in all measures, millions of people use it every day. So there's no criticism there. But they had GitHub, which had literally the largest corpus of code data in the world. And they had VS Code, which was actually like literally before that they had Visual Code and they had Visual Code, VS Code, Visual Studio. So they had all of the plumbing there. But they had no AI real business that was like consumer facing. So somehow that entire organization had no person who was going, hey, we need to like do this, which was exactly what OpenAI did, and then exactly what Anthropic did, and then exactly what Cursor guys did, right? And they had, I read this quote where Satya said, why do we have 12 100 researchers researching, and we haven't figured any of this shit out, and we're licensing OpenAI. And now they're licensing Anthropic. It's like you have 1,200 and you have a head of AI, all this stuff, and it's like, well, they weren't asking critical questions, or maybe they were, but those voices were being drowned out by the corporate, structure of like holding people back. But they missed it. They've
Yeah.
totally
And
missed it.
it could be, just by the way, as to bring it around to some of the stuff we've just been talking about. It could be that those researchers are exactly what you say, that they're researchers, right? They have interested from an intellectual standpoint and not from a product standpoint. Whereas Sam Altman, God bless him, basically says, I'm gonna make 100 bets and I'm gonna try, 100 different things because I'm looking for product market fit. If you come out of the Y
Yeah.
Combinator, Paul Graham, you must launch, get data, find, 100 people that love you. And they found 100 people that love ChatGPT.
Y-
And all of a sudden, there's, same thing with the Cursor guys. They look at
Yeah.
VS Code and say, it's kind of a pain in the ass to use. We can wrap it and fork it and make it better. And all of a sudden, well, now it's a $60 billion.
Yeah. And well, so they're researchers, and you're right. The center of this jelly donut was researchers, and then everybody around it weren't able to like actually seize the day. And maybe, I'm not the CEO of Microsoft, but maybe the right thing to do is like have spending a lot of money with researchers and team and talent. But really at the end of the day, just look at each other and say, okay, we're going to go do a deal with everyone else and just package, right? Which means you're leaning in on a sales team in an organization rather than it just seems to me that Microsoft might be able to weather that storm, but maybe your small company can't.
Yeah.
Like that's the point. Like
Well,
it's like
Microsoft's strength, you'd probably argue, is its enterprise sales
it
reach and capability, and the fact that it's trusted by, and it's installed in, almost every enterprise in the of size, around the country.
I mean, listen, we use GitHub, right? And so it's like a part we're buying services from Microsoft. And I guess my point is that if Microsoft has the sort of the bench and the cash to completely miss a revolution and get in, and their current, and I could be wrong. So like when the next podcast, I could be like, no, I'm completely wrong. But their version of the AI revolution is we have Azure and we're packaging other people's software like Amazon and like Google in a sense, but it's like they missed it, right? Their margin on
Yeah.
Anthropic or their margin on OpenAI is a lot different than if they actually would have applied it and had their own models. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be
What's the last great product that Microsoft shipped? The
none,
user experience, right? It's Excel,
none.
probably, which they, I think, bought too. But it's a long time ago, right?
It's
It's
I
they're
mean, I think Azure is the best product that Microsoft's put out in a long time. I
right,
think their design shift,
but it's
huh?
plumbing, right?
It's
At the end of
plumbing,
the day,
but
it's not a consumer.
no.
What's the last great consumer? I should say, last great consumer product. And they bought Minecraft, which seemingly was great. They bought GitHub, which was seemingly was hard to argue
LinkedIn, they
this.
own LinkedIn, they own GitHub, they own Minecraft, and they own in Azure.
Yeah,
I think the company's a portfolio business. It's just they're not going to innovate like small startup, which is okay. But I guess the point is if Microsoft has that. But if you're like a mid-sized company doing $50 million in revenue, you're going to get obliterated in this run because you don't have what Microsoft can do. Like you
no,
can't
they
portfolio companies. Adobe's the same way. Like
Microsoft can't. The little guy can't pump $13 billion into OpenAI and give them compute and give them, all the stuff that they could do to partner with
which
that,
bought them
which
time,
which
which
bought
just
the,
bought
which
them
bought
time.
bought them time, and for the longest period of time here, bought them the best asset in the business.
Yeah,
It was, considered.
exclusive. They were
Yeah,
exclusive.
they were exclusive on the best asset in the business. Certainly the largest user base in the business. As it turns out, not the right users.
So like if you're a business owner and you're listening to us talking, what I'm trying to illustrate is like Microsoft, a behemoth in technology, like a
You ain't
cornerstone.
Microsoft. That's what we're saying.
Huh?
You ain't Microsoft.
You're not
That's the
Microsoft.
message.
You don't have the time. Like,
Correct.
and it's without sort of spreading doom and disaster. It's really actually saying if you want to defend your position, you're going to start have to thinking about how modern business is shifting. Microsoft saw it. They didn't do anything, got caught flat-footed, did deals with OpenAI, got stabilized, and now they're reselling other people's AI systems, which is fine. Your company may not have that ability, but more importantly, you don't have the team and talent to understand it. And we're going back to context. If you don't even understand how the AI systems work, you won't be enlightened. You won't have any little light bulb, a 10x light bulb, a 5x light bulb, let alone a 100x light bulb to sort of say, oh, here's how we can industrialize our system. And you'd sent me an email. I mean, just kind of on this thread, you sent me a text. I don't know what it was, but it was like,
I don't
you
know
could
what it was
follow
either.
around this company. You could follow around a company and tell them
Oh, yeah,
this-
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
I
And
know, I know what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah, and
Huh.
it's like, but there are there are executives that need someone that literally would just say, like, "Hey, do a ride around with me at my company for the next 10 days." Like, it's a different level of consultant where you could just go like, "Here's how you could exploit AI on that. Here's how you
Yes.
could exploit AI on that." It's not like it's all gonna work, but it's like the executive needs to know, like, "How would I use this stuff?" Because they
Yeah.
don't even have that.
Yeah, it's funny. I always I sort of read that and I thought of it sort of as two vectors. There's vector one, which is here are my business pain points, and how can we use AI to sort of help my pain points? I'm not responding to proposals quick enough, or I'm not getting back to people. There's all sorts of stuff like that. And then there's the, I would say, the deeper next cut of that, which is, are your pain points actually the parts that are holding your business back? Which is, are your pain points just a pain in the ass as opposed to being a fundamental threat to your business? And how do we actually take what you do as a business, what expertise that you have in your organization, and make sure that you are absolutely maximizing the value of that.
Maxing.
Yeah, as opposed to, it could be that missing sales calls doesn't really matter to you because it's just,
Yeah.
you don't want to lose sales, but it could be that you're just literally so non-optimized on everything that you already have that you can triple profitability just by fixing some basic problems there. And I think, you need to go through both of those situations, and it's not hard. It's just right, and it's understanding what's possible. And I don't think that the average person understands what's possible. I think the average person still looks at ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or Anthropic Claude and looks at a chat box and says, "Hey, great, it's better to Google.
Yeah.
It's a better
I
search."
think
And
that's
and
I
that's
think
not
that
the
yeah,
answer.
and I think the thing that most people like, I always think about technology is like, "Hey, where can we apply technology that's aspirin or it's ibuprofen?" It's like, "Oh, hey, you're helping us do this thing." But there's another layer of smart companies that think about after they do the ibuprofen and the aspirin with their technology, they think about muscle building, and those companies excel. Those
Yeah.
companies kinda go like, we figured something out and we've actually done some muscle building and we're 5x better than any of our competitors because we're able to do this and that. And I feel like my belief and it's our belief that when we talk to company owners that they're just not there yet and they can't afford, some of them can't afford like having Bain consultants come in. It's just like they're not that company that can onboard that sort of level of consultancy
Yeah,
that they don't know
almost
how to.
almost none of them can.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'd argue that if you're, look, if you are a, let's go back to the announcements last week, right? Both OpenAI and Anthropic are now in the consulting business, right?
Yep.
And
Which
so,
I always forecast that was going to be
right.
the, like it was.
And so, yeah, it's so if you think about it, you have to be private equity backed by some of these larger funds in order to access that service. And what does that mean? It means that you are a company that probably has 40 to $50 million in EBITDA, in, operating cash, which means that you're a $500 million, value company, roughly, give or take. So if you're a company that's doing $10 million in revenue, you're not on these guys' radar screen. You're too small.
Well, yeah,
So
and you're not. You're also probably not.
But
Like, it's
you're plenty big.
you're plenty big, and I actually think so. I've hired consultants, and it's like, if your culture of a company is such, you won't be able to interface with those kinds of consultants because they're operating at this otherworldly level, and you're like, "Bro, I don't operate like that. I don't even know what you're talking about." So, it's kinda like a culture clash.
Yeah,
So, you know, like, I'm deeply interested in, like, this, like, solopreneur and up and, like, not if you're able to afford Bain or any of these level guys, you're fine. You're gonna get
right.
blueprints, and you're gonna hire some people, and you'll probably do better than your
You're
competitor.
gonna actually hire all the people you fired.
Yeah,
They're gonna get
exactly.
picked up by Anthropic, and they're gonna come right back into the same company and say, "I know all the problems here. You fired me,
Yeah, yeah,
but
exactly.
I know the problems, so I'll fix them."
Yeah. So I think there's a but I actually think what's interesting is, like, a consultant could say, "Hey, set this up, but who's gonna operate it?" That's the other thing.
Yep.
It's like, literally, like, these AI systems, and that's what they are. They're AI systems, like, require a finesse and an attitude and a belief that's different than what's currently employed.
Yeah.
It period.
Oh, and
I've
by
gone
the way,
through that.
they're software. They will break, right?
They will break, but
Like
they're
someone needs to look after them every once in a while.
all the time. I mean, there's this it's software, right? A lot of times you never see things breaking because there's teams around them that are, like, rebooting them, but trust me, everything's breaking and everything's getting rebooted.
We know. I
We
mean,
know.
it's happened to us
Yeah, it happens all the time. So
quite
it's
a few
just
times.
it's actually it's part of the meal. But where I'm going with this is, like, I just look at Microsoft and I just go, like, wow, if that's happening at Microsoft, that's gotta be happening just, like, wholesale everywhere else. And even in the finance world, like, I think finance world, the best of the hedge funds, the best of all those guys, they're gonna get totally wiped out, I think, by, like, just solo guys that know how to, like, instrument their AI systems, just like when high-speed traders came out. Like, I think
Yeah.
the guys that are holding a couple baskets of stuff and blah, 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 and they're not using quants. I think those guys are gonna see something, like, change on them too.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if you're on, finance Twitter, I guess, and or AI Twitter, I mean, you see the Jane Street stuff that the numbers
Yeah.
that are coming out of Jane Street, out of Two Sigma, out of Citadel, and you can throw in Polymarket, Kalashi, type guys as well.
It's
They're
changing.
yeah, it is fundamentally changing. So if you're going to be a trader, you're either going to be them or you're going to be broke. You're going to be scalped by them, and you won't even know it. You'll just be dead, and lying in the gutter and going, "How did I get broke?" And I think the only thing that you can do differently, quite frankly, is that you can be smarter over a different time frame. And these guys are looking for no down days, right? And so if you're sitting there and going, I can generate returns by effectively accepting the fact that I will have a losing quarter, losing year. I might lose 20% this year, but I'm going to make 70% next year. So, net, I'm okay. And I'm up, that would average out to 15% a year, something like that. And I'll be okay, which is kind of strange, right? You think about it. Hey, you had a 70% up year, but if you started with 100, went down 20, you got at 80, you're up 70 off of your 80, you're at 136. You've compounded at 15, 16% a year, which again, if you compound at 15, 16% a year for 20 years, you're a god.
Yeah, you are.
But you have to be able to withstand that, and most people can't withstand it. It's why Buffett was always phenomenal, but simply because his time frame was different
Yep.
fundamentally than everybody else's. But I don't think that capitalism doesn't allow for uh, different time frames for too long.
Not right now, I don't think.
No, the business, most businesses won't have the fortress balance sheet that allows for
That's
you to
Microsoft.
actually take. Yeah, so Microsoft had that balance sheet. They probably looked and said, "We can't figure this out. We'll invest in OpenAI." OpenAI did figure out ChatGPT, and so it became a great investment. They they had the only for a while there, they had the only play on the best asset in the business, the fastest growing asset in the business. And it was only over time when Anthropic really started to accelerate faster that OpenAI was viewed as not necessarily the absolute winner. But, I mean, let's face it, if
It's not
OpenAI IPOs at the last price that they took money in at, I mean,
I mean, I think
Microsoft's made $100 billion plus, so not exactly not exactly a bad outcome for them, and
no, no, it's
they
just
still are reselling it, and they're still, you know, they, and but they're also now selling other people's products as well, and they're doing what they're good at.
but that's financialization, right?
Yeah,
So, like, we're ki well, we have a few more minutes here, but we have financialization, which requires power accreting to the top, right? So you have Microsoft can do it. Most average businesses don't have that, so they're gonna have to get smart and get hiring the right people, or they're gonna get wiped out. You would mention that, like, Elon, who's also a people think him as pure engineering smarts, but he's also obviously extraordinary deft business person because he just financially engineered Anthropic writing on his he went and sorry, let me start over. He went and started building out Colossus with Oracle, right? Which had the most GPUs in the world, right? Because he's smart enough as an engineer. It's like everyone's going to need power and compute. And so he's sitting on that. He's using it for his own systems. He's getting great growth on his own systems, but not nearly as good as the other guys. What does he do? He then leases it to Anthropic. He also goes, like you said, financialization. He went and also put a $60 billion put offer on the power
Cursor.
users of the internet, Cursor.
Yep.
These aren't something a small business could do. This is only someone that has that amount of money. So again, it's accreting to the top with people that actually understand all this stuff. He understands it. The average business guy doesn't understand this and doesn't have the capital. So it's a
Yeah.
really tricky time to be in business.
Yeah, I look. I mean, at the end of the day, you listen to enough Elon Musk, and you realize, he just, he just thinks of everything from first principles. So sure. I mean, I would argue that he got Anthropic to buy him Cursor effectively by repurposing Colossus One when he had already basically finished using it, and he'd moved on to Colossus Two and Three, um, and that's a pretty impressive feat because Anthropic had the seemingly the best, the best paying users and had a compute shortage. He was long compute and short users, and he was able to turn that into a win for himself by actually teeing up the SpaceX IPO, filling up his Colossus One, locking up Cursor, all in a matter of about 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks, but think about it, he's done something that I think is just I don't think everyone fully understands. Anthropic was pissing off all of its customers
Yeah.
the top customers,
Yep.
the top engineers. They were changing pricing, they were they're releasing so fast, so the software
They're
was
rate limiting people.
they're
Yeah.
rate limiting. So it was a nightmare being an Anthropic user and still be happy. He unlocked them. He's getting I forgot the number, you might know the number, but he's getting good deal. Anthropic is getting relief. He's a
Yes.
life preserver for Anthropic.
Yeah. Well,
Coupled with that
yeah, I was just say, remember the Google earnings release where they basically said we could have been far more profitable if we had more compute.
so the first
A-
principle
Apple said we could have been far more profitable if we had more Mac Minis. I mean, there's more demand for this stuff than the guys who are spending almost $1 trillion. The three-quarters of $1 trillion isn't enough. They need more trillions.
yeah, and
That's
I
what it
feel
comes
like
down
so
to.
just on the theme here with Elon, he life preserver, he's saving Anthropic's ass, and he's making a ton of money doing it.
And man, is he sticking a hot poker into the side of Sam Altman and OpenAI, isn't he?
Yeah, so that's another thing. By saving Anthropic, he's also causing major sort of problems for OpenAI. And then at the same time, he's taken the most beloved sort of like agentic coding system, Cursor, and is got that locked up. So he's winning bigly,
Bigly, yes, bigly, yes, huge.
bigly. So So again, most businesses aren't going to do what he's doing, but going back to first principles, he realizes and he knows, and I think and I think your friend or your colleague or former colleague Paul Tudor Jones is also saying that it's like there's so much more in this game to be played that has been played. It's a full industrial revolution, and I think owning all of that compute and energy is actual, which I would just call, that's almost like distribution. It's like you could provide compute and energy is the winning position. He doesn't need to have the winning model. All the models need compute and
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I read was putzing around in bed before getting up this morning. I was on X and reading it, and there was I forget. I probably I may have saved it. I'll look for it. But there was an article that just sort of went deeper than that, and he sort of said Elon's thinking about these things again. First principles. Go back and say, what do people need? They need compute. Okay, what do we need to get compute? Well, we need data centers. Okay, what do we need? What's the gating factor on data centers? Oh, it's power generation. Okay, so now he's built up all these turbine systems for power generation, some legal, some quasi-legal, I guess, although now he's got, more legal ones. But then you go back to the next, iteration of that and say, well, what is it that actually stops us from building power plants where we want them, where we need
regulation.
them? And the answer is regulation. Exactly. And so how do we go back and solve for regulation? I think that part of some people have speculated that he got involved with Doge just so he could kill off anyone who was looking at his business. I'm going to take the other tact and the more I'd say humanitarian tact, I guess, and say that uh, that fixing bureaucracy and fixing regulation is the one thing that is going to stop us from, as a society, imploding. And that's sort of doomerism right there, but the answer is as long as the pie is growing, you can keep society going. The second that the pie is fixed, then all you have is bureaucrats who determine who gets the pie, and then people revolt. And
Yeah,
that's when you have big fights. So you need to have the pie continue to grow, and the only way to have the pie to continue to grow right now is again, I sort of joked about it before, but like you're either going to be in AI or you're going to be in peptides. Those are the two things.
that's true.
Because
I agree. I agree.
I mean,
I
let's
agree.
face it, like all the fat drugs, and anyone who knows me has heard me say that I take Zepbound. It's been great for me, but those companies generate something like $76 billion a year in revenue, or $80 billion a year in revenue, and once the next one comes out, it's going to be over $100 billion a year, and Lilly's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar company as a result of it. It's bigger, me losing weight is bigger than AI, right? There's more revenue in fat loss drugs than there is in AI.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
mean that's a consumer fact. Period.
yeah,
Not everyone
period.
needs not everyone needs the AI, but everyone has to look good enough to like survive. That's
Hey,
just
it's bikini season, baby. I'm
but
ready.
it's but that's basic business. It's like, dude,
Yes.
your business needs AI. You may not think about it. You may be with a group of people that are saying like this is technology's bad and all this. Buddy, if you want to keep a business running, that's like that you're going to need AI. And if you're gonna, if you're going to want to get laid, you're going to need some peptides pretty soon. Um,
Yep.
it's just crazy. It's an unprecedented time, in my opinion, of what's going. Where I think on the regulation front, I think that China has got us beat on regulation. I think that they can align differently than the United States, and I don't think all regulation is bad. The problem with a lot of regulation, it's not aligned properly. Meaning I want healthy food. In fact, I want better regulation on food. I don't want American companies to serve me shit in my food. I want that beggar. However, I want the regulation in a way that improves the sort of velocity of business and the success, not
Yeah.
to like, and I've seen regulation firsthand just be just as dumb as it can be, and you're just like, "This is just straight dumb," and
You're likely to get Spencer Pratt as your next mayor in LA. courtesy of failures of bureaucracy and regulation now that, and oh, by the way, and his unbelievably genius use of AI to create advertisements.
Well, but let's end there because I think it's a great place to end. I think if you're listening to this podcast, you have to realize that we're not dooming and we're not actually sort of over promoting AI. We're just saying that it's just inevitable. And if you're a business, you need to like really become sober and get with it. And that leads us to Pratt. His ads that he's been making, or his team that's been using AI, that's available to everybody. That's not available to no like a certain class of people. That's available to everybody.
Yeah.
He's deployed it. He's deployed it at scale and it's working.
Yeah, what's
That
what's
is
what what's crazy to me about it, and, just give me a second here, is that, I live, if you ask me, I'm a New Yorker at heart, right? I was born in Brooklyn, grew up in Queens, went to, lived in New York City. So I've
what do you
lived in
think about
3.
your basketball team?
The basketball team's unbelievable. Not that I watch basketball or care about it much, but they're playing unbelievable defense, and they're,
The Knicks are in it, man. They just
I
swept.
was
They just swept.
yeah, I was out with, a sports talk host, Mike, Chris Mad Dog Russo, who's a good buddy of mine, playing golf over the weekend, and he was going on about it. And when he goes on about it, that it's something real, because it's what he does for a living. So, um, yeah. So, but look, you had I don't understand it, but I sort of understand it, right? Like, you have Mamdani, who took over New York City as a communist, as a socialist democrat, and he
People
did
like
it,
that. People
but
like that
but
rhetoric.
he did it because he was really good on TikTok. He was good at social media.
Great at it.
Yeah, he is. He's a great politician. He's a good speaker. He appeals to people. Look, most people like to be told that it's someone else's fault, and he's going to solve it by taxing them and giving people free stuff. He obviously went a little far by demonizing Ken Griffin, in front of his house, and I think he's going to pay the price for that.
Yep.
And quite frankly, rightfully so. You I mean, California is seeing it now. You cannot kick out the people who pay the taxes and then still give away free stuff, because there's nothing free. But Mondami won, I would say, because of his really good use of social media. I would argue that Trump won the last election because of his embracing of the manosphere and his use of social media and his embracing of podcasts and Rogan and Theo Von and guys like
Yeah.
that. And I think
Podcast. Yep.
and I think Spencer Pratt is going to win because he's taken it to the next level, and he's good at debating. He's a good speaker. He's comfortable in front of cameras. But these ads, I mean, if I'm talking about the ads from 2,600 miles away because I spent the weekend watching, and I'm singing the songs, Spencer Sakala Basura,
Yeah.
is taking out the trash, and I mean, like, oh my God, they're funny, but at the same time, knowing LA and having friends there and seeing, guys like you who have lost stuff in the fires, like, and you see the political nonsense that's gone on since then, you sort of look at it and go, yeah, I mean, is it possible that California is actually going to start electing competent people as opposed to the ideologically chosen folks?
It's possible.
It's possible, right? I mean, Lori in San Francisco was a real backlash against, against people who went too far, and like, hey, looting, no problem, it's just not a big
Gary
deal.
Gary Tan out of Y
Yep,
Combinator's kind of getting a little more civic minded. I think that
very much so.
I think a lot of people are looking at the way politicians are elected and seeing what kind of adults are there and looking at the outcomes of the communities, and I think they're going to start voting a different way. I can't vote because I'm in Pasadena, but I grew up in the Pacific Palisades, and I have a family member still out there. It's burned to the ground, and it's largely done by, we were talking about regulations, due to regulations and just due to like mass incompetence,
Yes.
just mass incompetence. Just like you
Over like
hire,
30 years. Yeah.
yeah, so you hire really low IQ people that hire really low IQ people, and you hope there's no accidents. And we've
Right.
had one. And
Yeah.
and sadly, the incompetent class is still trying to muddle through repairing everything, but they can't. Their level of incompetence and lack of understanding of anything is just tremendous. And so that's where the US is going to get stuck. If we can't
Yeah.
get ourselves out of being incompetent, run by incompetent people, we will not excel as an or as a platform for great businesses.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the other thing that I'll just bring back to our earlier conversation, which is critical thinking.
Yes.
John Fetterman right now is being excoriated daily by the press, by the Democratic Party for breaking with them on occasion. Not all the time, on occasion. And for lack of a better word, voting his conscience or voting the actual will of his constituents. And he gets Joe Manchin got crushed, Kristen Sinema got crushed. Anyone who is even remotely independent gets crushed if they don't just sort of toe one of two lines. And I think we should be absolutely celebrating the fact that these folks are actually thinking somewhat differently. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will get on and listen to that and say, yeah, they're doing it because it gives them personal power. And maybe they are, but the truth of the matter is we probably should have 100 of those people in the Senate who are really thinking about it critically and saying, actually, this is what's good, not the far left and not the far right, but somewhere in the middle that has some sort of logical sense. And we'd all be better off, I think, for that. AI is giving power, like as you said, to everybody, and it's giving it to them almost uniquely. I think it's the greatest single leveler that we've ever had. Anybody with a phone and a $20 subscription can actually access the same models that are building Spencer Pratt's advertising campaigns and any of the stuff that we do on a daily basis. I mean, again, what does it really cost us? We have a $200 subscription to Claude, and we
It
use some other stuff, but it's not much
it's
relatively
yeah,
speaking.
we have insight and intellect and curiosity, and not everyone has that.
No,
We are Spencer Pratt's use of AI, I think is follows that pattern that you said, like maybe Trump had podcasts and social media, like you kind of just go through the trends. But the point that we're trying to make is less political, even though we went there a little bit. But the point is that here's an organization that had to make ads, and they chose to use AI because it was probably done by a small team, maybe two people, maybe a little bit more, no greater than that.
it's probably two 18-year-olds or something like that who
Whatever, right? But it's
came
not
to them with it.
yeah, it's not a camera crew, a light crew, an audio crew. It's a small team, and they're effective and they can move fast, and that's the point. And that organization has a limited amount of budget and a limited amount of time to get something done, and they got it done, and they took a swing, and it's working. And that is the same that you have to do for your business. And if you're not, we're
Yeah.
doing this podcast to tell you you're probably going to get your lunch handed to you. Not to be doomers, but to just say it's happening. Wake up.
Yeah, you just can't be an ostrich, right? You can't have your head in the sand. You have to look around and see the environment in which you're operating.
Yeah,
And capitalism demands more, faster, better, more efficient. It rewards efficiency,
it just yeah.
and AI provides a spectacular amount of efficiency. And if you're not taking advantage of it, somebody else will be in whatever niche.
Yeah, they're gonna get you. So that said, we
We'll
want
we'll
to
leave it on that. That
we'll
we're
leave.
gonna get you.
Well, we're willing to sort of help. So it's like, like reach out to us. We're super available. We're on Twitter. We have a website you can find at getcoai.com. And we're at Twitter. We're on LinkedIn. We're
We're
talking to
easily
people all the time.
findable.
We're very findable. We'll see how curious everyone is.
Yep.
And we'll talk. We'll get to you next week. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Anthony. Talk to you. Bye.